welcome to episode 9 of the Mind and Body Pump cast. And today we're going to be talking about mental health issues. And before we introduce you to all the guests, I want you to meet my brand new co-host, Ronnie Orr. Ronnie, say hello.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
I can't hear them.
Welcome to the Mind and Body Pump cast with special guest Joe Perruzza, working with you in mind, and Callum and Leanne Taylor with mental health mentors. Good evening, guys. How are we?
Yeah, you're right.
Excellent. Hi. So, what we're going to do, if you want to get in touch with us, you can get in touch through Facebook and through YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, use the post of the comments at the bottom to ask any questions. If you want to ask a particular question to one of our hosts, just ask if it's for Joe, reference Joe, and if it's for Callum and Leanne, do that as well. So, Joe, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, please, before we kick off. Go on.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here this evening. I've been fortunate enough to have a profession in mental health for many years, but also in bodybuilding as well. So I've kind of got a double approach for this evening. Currently, I have a business called Working With You in Mind, which really focuses on workplace mental health. And why Working With You in Mind? Because as we know that with mental health, sometimes our mind doesn't work very well. So it's my kind of passion to help people get their minds working again.
Excellent. Okay, and Callum and Leanne, tell us who you are and where you're from and what you do.
So we're mental health mentors. So we're a not-for-profit organisation we teach about mental health awareness and specifically about how exercise can help your mental health. So we focus on fitness professionals and coaches. So my background is I work in a hospital and have a mental health qualification, and Callum here.
Very nice, well done.
So I've been in the fitness industry for 17 years now. I'm owner of a gym, Evolution Gym. We've worked hard to try and push the fitness side as a tool for combating mental health issues. We spoke Body Power about it last year, and we're speaking about it at several expos next year. And we just want to continue pushing the message of using fitness as a tool for combating mental health issues.
Well, we've got an hour tonight to talk about mental health issues, and we're never going to cover that in an hour. So what we're trying to do is probably focus on a number of areas. But I want to start it off by saying recently I've been talking to a guy who was very open and honest. And this could be you, it could be somebody who you know, it could be somebody in your family. When I was speaking to Wes today, he was open and honest. He tried to counteract these demons that he's got in his head. There's lots of things going on. It's difficult for him to get out of bed. It's difficult for him to start the day. He's actually tried to commit suicide 3 times and various ways. Where do we start with all of this? Why do you think people get themselves into that situation? Why do you think they can't get out of bed? Where does all this start in people's mind? We've got 2 experts there talking about the mind, and I think that's the key where we need to start. Joe, can I ask you that question first? Because speaking to this guy, he was blatantly honest. He knows he needs help. He says to me, there's times in the day where I need a phone call, someone to get me out of the black hole that I'm in.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Ronnie. I think first of all, what I really think is super important. We try not to say commit suicide any longer because suicide is not a crime, and I think it's really important for people to understand that people choose. They make a decision to end their life by suicide when actually they feel that might be the only option for them.
Wow.
So I think it's really important that we don't use the word commit because it isn't a crime. It hasn't been a crime, I think, since the 1960s or something like that. So a long time now. And I guess, it sounds like with the gentleman that you're talking about, that he feels that might be his only option. But actually, suicide is preventable because suicide is an action. So somebody makes a decision that that's what they feel is the only option. Actually, it is preventable with the right support, which is out there. And also with sounds for somebody like him, that he maybe hasn't just accessed the right support or got the right people around him to support him, and perhaps not being able to process some of the thoughts and the feelings that he has around his current circumstances.
Okay. Callum, Leanne, can I ask you the question then, following on from that? I mean, Joe's obviously said that, committing suicide is not the sort of language that we should be using, but this chap actually used those very words to me today. So how do we combat that, and how do we get the right people around us where we need to get us from this, this black hole that we're in? And again, forgive me if that's not the right word, but
yeah, like Joe says, there's not a one size fits all. So it's not necessarily for that specific person, it might not be if I come up with, say, right, okay, we need to ring the crisis team and do an intervention. That might not be the best option for that person. It's very individual. And it kind of needs to be sort of a holistic approach, because there might be lots of little factors that are tipping him to the point of using the word commit suicide. And I guess it's up to us to change the narrative of that saying commit suicide. It's a very generalized term. People use it quite often. So it's up to us and to get the word out there, to change the narrative. But it's very difficult to say exactly what intervention would be the best thing without having spoke to that person, know their circumstance. But it is getting out of bed. I think it's important to recognize that actually for one day, it's okay if you don't want to get out of bed. If you don't feel that way for that day, that's okay. Accept that that's how you feel and allow yourself to feel that way. It's when it goes on and on that there is a problem.
It's also very important to recognize that these kind of manic depressive thoughts or suicidal thoughts, they can happen to anyone at any time. It is not something that picks and chooses. It can happen to anyone at any time. It happened to me, and that's why I feel I'm well versed to speak on it, because I've suffered from depression. I've been on antidepressants. I know how harsh they are. That's why I feel like I'm in a position to be able to talk about it, because I've been in that position. So I know that it doesn't pick and choose, and it can happen to anyone at any time. And you can talk about anything you want. You don't have to talk about how you're feeling. That's the narrative that people always push, that you need to get on the phone and talk about your feelings. You can talk about anything you want. You just need to talk sometimes.
That was one of the points that he made, and again, it was interesting, and actually triggered a thought process in my mind, and that's what I did today. He said that he got out of bed this morning, and he wasn't feeling great, although it was okay, but his anxiety levels were a little bit higher than possibly normal. But he got a message from one of his guys or one of his friends who said, "How are you today? I hope everything's okay." And he said, and that sort of give him a sort of a different emphasis for the day, which is what you just said, Callum. It doesn't have to be talking about
exactly
right, etc. It could be anything. Well, listen,
and that talking about anything can change your mindset, and it can alter your mindset.
That's exactly what he said to me.
Depending on your environment, it can be altered in a very positive or negative way, and that can dramatically affect your mindset for the rest of the day.
Ronnie, can I ask a question? So, sorry. Obviously, suicide is probably the the end of the road, or the most severe part of mental health issues. How does one recognise that this starting this mental health degradation? What are signs of that you're dealing with depression, anxiety? If someone that's never had things in that life before, because I think sorry, Leanne, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up was not necessarily to tackle suicide as an issue. It was also to tackle the things that are going on right now at this current time. A lot of I would say normal people that have jobs and lives, and it's all been disturbed and upset completely. And there's all the press issues around mental health because we can't get to the gym and things like this. Well, there's got to be a start to this. How as a person do you recognise, and what are good techniques or good practices or good things to do to kind of stop you from getting worse, almost to go unguided or unhelped, or to try and fix yourself.
Yeah. Well, there's soft signs. I'm sure Joe will agree. There's soft signs that you can look out for people who are starting to sort of go, their anxiety or their depression's getting worse, is withdrawing yourself. This is why it's much more difficult in this lockdown to recognize these things, because people are cut off. So you don't notice these soft signs of withdrawing, not going out with friends, not picking up their phone, these little things where they're not doing their usual routine, they're not maybe going to, these little things that we're prevented from doing, and our friends or our circle don't notice these soft signs. So people are in general probably getting much further down the line before it's even being noticed by their friends, who then try and boost them and push them in the right in the direction of help. But
it's also important not to confuse situational anxiety with depression. Like, if you're in a situation which is highly relevant right now, where you've possibly been made redundant, or you've lost your job, or you're on furlough, and you feel yourself consistently in a bad mood or feeling down, it's important not to confuse that situational anxiety with depression. You can't immediately diagnose yourself with depression and think that you're depressed, and then therefore think that you need to be medicated from the doctors. I can speak from personal experience when I say SSRIs, which are depression drugs, are very, very strong things to take, and it's not something that you should rush into when it's possibly situational anxiety or dependent upon an individual situation which you're in right now, which there is possibly light at the end of the tunnel for.
So is it possible to break down? We've called this podcast, videocast, mental health. Addressing mental health. So what does that actually mean? Can that be broken down into? I mean, you mentioned anxiety and stress, and is there areas or elements to it, or is it too complex?
Well, mental health is just it's a thing. It's not a diagnosis. It's not an illness. Mental health is how we good mental health is how we deal with situations, how we go about our day. I think Joe will probably have a great insight into sort of cognitive behavioral therapies, and recognizing that thoughts become things.
Yeah. I think like Leanne just said there, we all have mental health. We don't all have mental illness.
That's an important distinction.
And I think that's a really important thing a really big distinction, and also for people to kind of remember that there's so much out there around mental health, and people start to think, oh well, have I actually got a problem, or is this normal? But everybody has mental health, but not everybody has a mental illness or mental ill health. And I think if we can do anything for people, is to help them understand what that kind of process is, and how people go from being mentally well to mentally unwell to having a mental illness on a continuum. But we've only got an hour, so we're not going to be able to do that.
But also, I think,
and to not and to not automatically label yourself as having
Absolutely.
depression or jumping to that conclusion.
Yeah, I think that diagnoses isn't always helpful.
Yeah.
I think what is really important is the behaviors and the actions that people do or they don't do that can really help other people to support them, because the diagnosis is something that can come way down the line.
Yeah,
and I know, would you agree with that, Callum?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Can we look at sort of if people are trying to say to themselves, or they're in a situation where they think they are depressed, and I take on board the mental health and mental health issues and the mind, and I take on the board what Callum said about don't think that you've got a mental health disorder because you've got a particular anxiety. And we're looking at anxiety levels now with people in lockdown, gyms not getting opened again or closed down again. And I see it on social media. It's my savior. That's where I go. That's where I get my head straight, etc. So there's that side of it. But what are the common mental health issues like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, obsession, compulsive disorder, things like that people get themselves into? If we could talk a few things about that, because I take on board what Callum said. It's a very, very good point about don't get mixed up between how you're feeling because you're being furloughed or you potentially lost your job or I don't know, or you smashed your car up or whatever. But the fact of the matter is there's a big difference between your panic attacks and your anxiety and not being able to get out of bed and borderline personality disorders, those sort of things. Talk to me about those. Talk to me how people recognize those. Could you answer that question, please?
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Joe, okay.
I think it's a loaded question, isn't it? Because it's not an easy
well,
question.
You see, I asked that question because people will be listening to that and they'll be saying, "Oh, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have panic attacks. Where do we go with this? How do we deal with it? How do we treat it? How do I get help?" And we've said that asking for help is a sign of strength, but I think it's proven fact that we're not very good at asking for help, especially us men. And I concur with that, and Callum's already made that very clear as well. So, how do we try and recognise that we've got these situations, and how can we move forward with people who have them?
I think for the people that are really experiencing, anxiety and depression, and maybe some of the more major mental illnesses, such as your bipolar, which used to be called manic depression, schizophrenia, personality disorders, they are very real for people. And I think what happens is the media doesn't help by kind of dramatizing a lot of these major mental illnesses, and that's where the labels come from. But I think if we're looking at something like a depression or an anxiety, I can be anxious, but I wouldn't say that I was an anxiety. I didn't live with anxiety, but I can get anxious. But I can get anxious, maybe about talking on here, or maybe about I don't know, getting in lifts on stage. That's me. I don't like getting in lifts, so my anxiety will increase, and that there'll be physical symptoms that I will experience. So my heart rate will go up. I'll get sweaty palms. I'll start kind of flicking my hair and getting really agitated, but it's only for that moment in time.
Yeah, it's the same with depression, isn't it? I mean, people confuse the feelings of being depressed because they've had a bad day with actual depression is a chemical imbalance in your brain, and don't confuse temporary feelings of feeling down or having a bad day or having a bad week or feeling a little bit depressed with actual depression. We shouldn't jump to label ourselves with that.
It's about it interfering with your ability to either do your job or function, and that's when you recognise there's a problem. If there's if you have the inability to be asleep, that tends to be the key thing. Like if you can't sleep very well, if you've got really bad insomnia, you're waking up a lot, unless there's some underlying alternative health condition, but you're feeling anxious, it potentially is becoming a problem, because lack of sleep will then impact the other areas of your life. So if you're having difficulty doing normal functioning, like doing your day job, looking after your family, looking after yourself, some self-care, brushing your hair in the morning, little things, that's when it's a problem.
And let's be honest, lockdown has not done anyone any favours as far as mental health issues are concerned. Every kind of possible mental health issue has been magnified. People are feeling more anxious, they're feeling more depressed, they're feeling a lot of situational anxiety. We had people coming back to the gym, which we own after the last lockdown, incredibly anxious to come back to a place they love that they previously considered home. And we had people shaking, and they just felt incredibly nervous, which was pretty sad to see. It was a place where they previously come every single day, and there's a regular routine like brushing their teeth. And that got took away from them for 4 months, and all of a sudden they've got this huge pent-up anxiety about coming back to a place that is essentially their second home. And I hope that lockdown doesn't bring about that again.
Well, Callum, you've just touched on two. Well, actually, Leanne, you touched on it first, and Callum's come up on another subject that I do want to talk about. So we'll separate them, but I'll ask them out loud first, and then you can answer them in whichever order you want to. So you mentioned self-care, and I think it'd be worth to talk about what self-care is, what practices can we do to kind of promote self-care, how do we help ourselves in this time, you know. So self-care was one, and while I still remember, Callum mentioned about obviously his experiences with his clients from the gym, etc. Now I kind of mentioned something the other day about what I felt was there seems to be, and Joe can probably, we're all fitness related here. We've all been on stage, or you know, we're all in part of the fitness industry, so we can relate to probably what I'm about to say. But it almost seems like particularly if you're a hardcore gym goer, or someone who competes, or you know, is taking it very, very seriously. The gym does become a lifeline, and I think, Callum, that's where you mentioned it. It's become that daily practice, the daily habit. It seems to be almost a fragile line, that taking that stability, the grounding away from them, it then exposes the mind into, like, it makes it vulnerable and opens up, well, the only strength I've got now is my mind, and it's maybe not strong enough for me to deal with this. So then I kind of noticed that. So I've touched on two topics there: self-care, and then the fragility of the mind when the gym or the sport is taken away. So I'll leave it up to you guys, and we can bring Joe in if she wants.
No. I think self-care is watch where you're feeding your mind. I'm sure Joe will agree. Like social media, we know what we should be not looking at and feeding our minds with. However, when this first all started, my Facebook feed and my feed was full of controversial this and this story and this story and this story about various things. And I could feel myself getting more and more angry and animated. And I work with COVID research, so I know this is not correct. I know this isn't correct. But my whole world's going, well, that must be true. I'm not sure. So to filter your feed, unfollow people. Don't know that you've unfollowed them. Unfollow them. Take that out. And then if you're not seeing it, then you're less likely to share it, and then it's less likely the algorithm's going to pull more onto your feed. That is the biggest self-care I can think of right now.
I think the algorithm's very good, but the algorithm's a very good point, actually. And yeah, filter all the bull out, get rid of it. That's a very good.
Social media is very good at creating false perceptions as well, that or false illusions. So it can create a false illusion that everyone's on this grind and everyone's grinding every day and getting stuff done and being super productive and have nice cars and nice homes and this and that, and it can kind of make you feel a little bit like lost at times. And I can't emphasize this enough, just getting up every day and giving 100% is the grind. You are grinding. You are giving your best every day. You're getting up and showing up every day. You're grinding just as hard as everyone else. Don't buy into everything that you see on social media, because it can create quite a false perception.
Brilliant. That's great.
Simple things. I'm sure Joel have something like just a simple routine. I think. Yeah. Like just a simple routine. Like Carl said, like get up.
Yeah.
Get up and show up.
And if that's all you do for that day,
then you're grinding.
It doesn't matter. Absolutely. Yeah. And if you do that again the next day and you might clean your teeth, absolutely. And I think the thing around self-care is, and I think it reflects back to social media, like you've already said, guys, but it's also, you kind of see these, right, I might get the name wrong. Is it like a meme thing?
Yeah.
And it'll say something like, eat chocolate cake and go on spa days. That's all very well, but they are not going to help you make good, positive choices for your self-care. You know, it's about habit stacking. And if one day you clean, you wash your face, the next day you wash your face, clean your teeth, the day after that you put a top on, that's good.
Small steps.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I don't like all this chocolate cake and spa days.
So how do people actually get themselves in the thought process of doing what you've just said, Callum, Leanne, and Joe? Because they're not the experts. You guys are. They really need this help and guidance, don't they? So how do they start thinking like that? How do they start? I mean, the very good point, Leanne. Don't listen to social media. Get rid of all the fog factors. Get rid of all that. What you've just said about cake and everything. That's all very well and good, and the thought process that you guys give are brilliant. But how does the guy who's listened to us and the girl who's listened to us, differentiate between all of that and say, I do need some help. I do need to get some guidance. I do need to have somebody give me a little bit more of a sort of a help and a guidance on that, because we talked about before about recognizing the signs, so maybe they recognize some of them. How do they go about dealing with that on a daily basis?
It's very, very individual. So what is good for someone isn't necessarily good for someone else. It's very, very individual. So for someone like who doesn't leave the house an awful lot, getting up and getting out of the house and going for a walk might be a big thing for them. And it also might be something that if they can implement that into a daily routine, going for a walk might massively change their mindset for the day and subsequently for the week. For someone else, that might not be a big deal, or it might not necessarily work. For someone else, they might need to put themselves in a positive environment, surround themselves with people who lift them up mentally. And for someone else, it might be listening to some uplifting music. It's very, very individual, and you've got to find what kind of makes you tick.
But if they're really wanting to contact someone, then the place would be us for a start. If we can't help you or advise in some way, then also there's Mind. There's lots of there's lots of websites and things where you can go and just get little hints and tips. If you're feeling like that you're really, really struggling, and there's Samaritans, there's all these contacts. It depends degree you're at, but if you just want some advice, there are there's a lot of companies like ourselves, like Joe, who offer, we have free advice on our social media pages. And then if you need something specific, then there can be a tailored package. The same as like Mind and the other things. They have information about the signs and symptoms that you might be experiencing, but then you run the risk of people self-diagnosing, which we were trying to run away from before.
And I hate this message that we constantly have to talk about what our problem is or what our issue is. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. You don't have to talk about what you feel is bugging you, what your problem is, or what you think your mental issue is. Sometimes you just need to talk, and it isn't necessarily about what your problem is. So I don't like this message that we have to get on the phone and talk to someone about what our problem is. We just need to talk to someone. It doesn't necessarily have to be about what your problem is. You can get to that down the line when you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I think you're right there, Callum, because the people that I speak to, they say that they just want someone to talk to. They want someone to listen, and that's where I'm going. You want someone to listen, and they can basically talk about anything. And then when you feel comfortable enough to basically release some of this, I don't know, anxiety, stress, the things which are ailing you, it then starts to heal itself there. But how do we get the people to make that decision, whether it's just a talk or whether it's just a walk? How do we get them to actually do something? Because I'm familiar with somebody who doesn't want to get out of bed. I'm familiar with somebody who sets 6 and 7 alarm calls for every 15 minutes to try and get them motivated to get out of bed. And when it's time to get out of bed, they're late for work, so they don't go in. You know, so how do we get them out of that? That's just a frustration for me.
Just asking for a friend there, Ronnie.
No, it's an experience I've had in my family. So
the anxiety, though, like we're saying, if someone suggests to someone who has anxiety to get out of bed, then that can internally increase their anxiety about getting out of bed. So my idea would be just to say, okay, you won't get out of bed today. What can we do in our bed today?
What if they've got to go to work?
Instead of going to work, can we just put the laptop in the bed and just do what needs to be done for a little while? And then you get over those fears little by little. You don't have to leave your bed. Okay, we won't do that today. And then just baby steps of trying to encourage them. And sometimes there might just be days where that's not possible.
Yeah.
And then there'll be those days where the fog lifts and they can do those things. So it's just about encouragement, and it is hard when you're the support network for someone who is struggling, because you take that burden a little bit, and it can be, I guess, disheartening sometimes to try and encourage someone who constantly no. So it's important to that you also, if you're a supporter, that you have support.
Well, listen, it's important, but I think the other thing which we tend to probably forget in all of this is the other members of the family that we've got, i.e., husband, wife, children, parents, in all of this. So I'll use the same example of someone who doesn't want to get out of bed, and you got to say to them, well, you can't lay there all day. You've got to get out of bed. This is me being, Mr. Unsympathetic. You've got to get yourself up out of bed. You can't lie there. You've got a job to do. What are you going to do? What's the impact on their lives in all of this? Because I get that they feel frustrated. They feel as though they can't help. So where do they come in all of this? How can they help the person who's got these issues?
Yo. I'm unmuted now. Just went to get. I think it's such an important question, that, Ronnie, actually, because I think a lot of people, family members and friends, they feel so helpless that they can't help the person that they love, they care about, to help them get better. So I think it really has to start with, for them, looking at themselves and getting help themselves from the right people. I think being able to ask questions in a way without perhaps getting frustrated and the shoulds and the you could, they're really not they're not helpful words to use for somebody because that would make me feel particularly anxious. if someone was saying to me, you should be getting up now, and I actually can't get up because I feel, my mood is really low, I'm full of anxiety, I actually don't want to face anything today. So it's about showing that empathy and understanding, in that actually you don't have to say anything sometimes, just being there, bringing them, some food or something to drink can be exactly what that person needs at the time. So I think that support for that family member, partner, friend, and it is really, really important, because it will have an emotional impact on that individual.
Yeah, certainly will.
Someone has raised a comment, and I've got an opinion on this myself. So let's just bring it into let's just show the comment first of all. Let me just so this is from Jen Harker, and she's saying that Samaritans offer just that, listening without judgment.
Yeah.
Now
they do, but they're not. And I think they listen without judgment because they don't have an opinion. They don't have a invested.
They're not emotionally attached in any way to you as an individual.
Yeah.
So they're a very good port of call. I would highly recommend them as someone just to talk to. If you don't feel like anyone in your immediate circle is someone to talk to, which often they are not, because like Leanne said, they are emotionally invested, or they may have an opinion. If you contact the Samaritans, 100% they don't have an opinion because they don't know you, so they can just listen.
But also they've had training, like Joe was referring to, on how to talk to someone who's struggling mentally, and what words not to say, what words might trigger, what words are unhelpful, which is something that we could all probably learn.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you say that. But when they talk to the Samaritans, and obviously they just listen, do they get to the point where they say, if you need any more help, this is available or that's available? So there's an option whether they do or they don't, or they can or they can't. Is that what happens?
They can signpost, and obviously their callers are there to handle certain situations,
But I think you're right in what you're saying. Use the right words and the wrong words. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's just because when I brought this up, I said I had an opinion about it, and so I haven't spoken to the Samaritans recently, but like Callum, and a lot of people, I'm nearly 50, so I've had a long life, and part of that life, there was a time when I needed to call upon people, and so I did use the Samaritans, but for me it felt like I was talking to a robot, because there's no emotion, because I wasn't getting out of what I needed from it.
Probably felt like they were reading from a script, or that's the flip side of the coin of not feeling like someone is emotionally invested. It's pros and cons.
Like Callum agrees. I do absolutely believe the Samaritans have a place, but I very much feel like you. Like, I would rather have someone who, I don't know, who knows me, who knows my situation, who knows, the greater circle, rather than just someone listening to me.
It did feel a bit scripted, and I honestly don't want to take anything away from the Samaritans.
No, absolutely,
whatsoever at all. I'm trying to talk about my experience, and I think that, like you said, everybody needs different things, and I think at that particular time in my life, I think I needed a friend or somebody who knew me that could, when I spoke about the particular circumstances, that they could relate to those specific circumstances, as opposed to the Samaritan that said, well, it just followed a script. There was no emotional attachment, and that's what the Samaritans don't offer. Is, like Callum said, is that I think I needed an emotional attachment to help me. So I don't know what you think about that. Is that where you guys, where either of you guys, Joe or you, are there teams or people or groups that offer emotional attachment or a different type of advice?
I guess that's why, and I experienced this a lot at our standard body power last year. I guess that's why I feel I can relate better, because I'm more of an more empathetic as opposed to sympathetic. Is that I've physically experienced some of what they've experienced, not their individual situation, of course, but you know, I know what they've been through in a similar thing, and I guess that people can sometimes find you more relatable in that respect. It can feel very, very like you're the only one in the world when it's happening to you. It can feel like you're the only one and this should be happening to me. And a lot of people need to hear a voice of reason and need to hear that someone else who's experienced it too sometimes.
I think the biggest comment that I've heard is people will relate to me, but when he says, I have struggled, they go, no way.
Yeah, couldn't believe
You're
it.
so big and so strong. No way. And it's like, he's a human.
I couldn't quite
isn't that
body power. I was like, just because I was of a particular build or was doing a lot of bodybuilding at the time, that people kind of were a bit stunned that I could have possibly have experienced similar kind of depressive tendencies to them or a similar situation. But like I said, it doesn't pick on individuals. It can happen to anyone at any time.
I think in some ways it made some people feel better. It made them feel better because they were like, oh, well, I'm all right. I'm okay. This is okay, actually. If you've had it and look at you and I've got it, then actually I'm okay. So yeah, it's certainly a comment that always sticks in my head.
Go on, Joe.
Joe's putting a hand up.
Oh, am I unmuted? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a really, really important fact that Callum's just said there, because actually what really helps people is if they're speaking to somebody that's in recovery, and you know, when you've had a mental illness or struggling with your mental health, you want somebody that's in a different place to you, that's gone before you, to support you, because what you're doing is actually giving them hope that actually they, in their own time, will be able to get there too. So I think I think it's so important. And I absolutely, you know, about the Samaritans, the work they do is phenomenal, and I think they're an incredibly special group of people to work with that level of distress. But absolutely, having somebody that's gone before you, that's recovering, that's now well and doing well with themselves and in a better place, is makes such a big impact for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can I bring it back to bodybuilding for this next section? Is that the baby?
Oh,
Oh, smart. So we've obviously had 2 lockdowns. Callum touched on it before regarding people's mental health on that. We have a lot of people who are probably looking at this video cast thinking, you know, the gyms are closed, my everyday routine, this sort of OCD that I've got of getting to the gym has all been taken away. My whole equilibrium is gone. I don't really see any points. Everything about me, the day is just gone because my whole routine is gone. How would you help them deal with it, and what advice would you give them to help them to get through this? Because obviously we've had the first lockdown, which I think was, you know, a couple of 3 months, and now we've got another one, potentially a third one in January. Who knows? I don't know. Joe, you're a competitive bodybuilder. I know you are as well, Callum. But Joe, from your point of view, what advice do you think you can give to those people in that situation and how they're feeling?
Again, I think it's one of those, it'll be different for everybody, but I guess if it's about being able to try and adapt and find something for themselves that they can do that's certain in a time of real uncertainty. And that can really help people. Again, it can be about forming a new routine, you know, okay, their training and their workouts are going to be quite different, but it's also trying to help that person to make that okay, that it's going to be good enough for now, even though they're not working at their 100% capacity that they'd like to be working at. Actually working at 95 or 90 is good enough, and it actually can really help people as well. So I think it's about supporting people to get different viewpoints on how they can manage these circumstances, but it's about that adaptability and with finding a new routine that works for them.
Yeah, we ran one of the Northeast's biggest bodybuilding shows for the past 4 years at the Time Theatre. We've run that consistently every summer, and so we deal with a lot of bodybuilders, a lot. And bodybuilders need routine. They need routine in their lives, habitual, and if you take away even the endorphin release side of training, which is very addictive, it's a good way. It's a good thing to be addicted to that endorphin release. It's just the routine that bodybuilders need. So if you take that away, it can really upset your mindset. But if you can still find little routines, little mini routines in your day to try and compensate and seek solace in the fact that routine will return, it will come back one day.
Yeah, be safe in the knowledge that there will be an end to this. Like feelings, they come and they go. Feel them at the time and then let them go. This is going to occur. It's occurring now, and we will come to an end point. And yeah, Callum is really echoing Joe by saying by adapting. So yeah, we're not going to go to the gym, but you adapt in a different way, getting a different routine. And yeah, we can easily say, oh, just adapt, get it. It's just taking little steps. When we first start, we just go, woof, and just go, actually, I'm not doing anything. This is rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And just accept that actually that's okay to say that for a few days and then start eking in. You know, it's fine to feel. It's fine to feel panic and crazed and anger and fear,
frustration,
and everything. That's absolutely okay, and it's absolutely perfectly normal to feel that way. And then it just, you know, if it hangs on, then we need to address it. But that's absolutely normal to feel all those feelings at any particular time in a day.
At some point, where do we help people where we've got this time scale involved? Because the first one, there was no real time scale, was it? We were 3 weeks, then another 3 weeks, and then it went on. And I think that was an issue for people.
Yeah, it didn't do anyone any favours.
No, it didn't. And then we've got the second lockdown. And then, you know, I mean, we can bring people's jobs in and furlough into that as well, because I think that doesn't help either. Because the guys and girls who go to the gym, they've all got a job, haven't they? But, you know, they're either in the gym first thing in the morning or even evening. But that's their routine, and that's been taken away. But it's a particular time. So this is only going to be for a month. So how do we condition the mind to deal with that for a month? So to do other things, is that what you're saying? Get into a different routine. Yeah, well, it's not going to be forever.
Yeah, get a calendar. Put the 30 days on your calendar.
I did that.
Count it down. Count it down. And then set something else.
Like you would show day.
Yeah, like you would show day, for example. Like you would just get those 30 days on a calendar and do something each day. Because like we were saying, people have anxiety about going back to the gym. People will have an anxiety because they couldn't do their PBs on day one after lockdown. That's inevitably not, going to happen. But I think we're lucky for want of a better word, in this lockdown, because if we go into a tier 3, we have the brilliant people of Liverpool who stood up for everyone in the gyms and made tier 3 gyms be able to be open. And that is bloody brilliant how they all stuck together. So
I'm impressed you didn't swear then. I'm impressed you didn't swear then, Leanne.
Yeah, I'm quite good. I've got 4 children, so I have to mind my P's and Q's.
Listen, we're on 50 minutes here at the minute, and it's gone really well. for people who are watching, you can see all the links at the bottom for our mental health mentors and for you in mind for Joe. So if you need, whatever you've heard tonight, if you think you need any more help and some more guidance from the experts that we've got on, bear in mind, we are not the experts. I'm just the link, as well as Matt. The experts are Joe, Callum and Leanne. So as you can see across the bottom of the screen, and I'm sure they would welcome any communication from yourselves if you need any help and advice and guidance, or just like what's been said, an ear to listen to and someone just to basically take on board what you're saying. So
Ronnie, I have also put their contact details in the actual post on Facebook and on YouTube as well, which the permanent reference, it'll be there on YouTube. So
brilliant. So it's not lost forever. So if you feel as though you haven't got the strength to do it this evening, maybe it resonates with you in the forthcoming couple of 3 days or a couple of weeks, and you can pick the phone up and ask for some help. Earlier on, we touched on bipolar, and I think the media really sort of home in on that, on dare I say, mental health. I just want to spend sort of maybe 5 minutes or so on bipolar. Extreme changes in moods from high to low, from low to high. What, Callum? What's your experience of this? I
don't have personal experience, and I don't like to speak about things that I don't have personal experience about. I know we can still treat people's cases very individually. Even with bipolar, it's still a very individual thing. They still have their triggers. They still have their habits. It's not something I can personally relate to, but there are still steps that people can take in every situation for whatever your mental health issue.
With bipolar, people do tend to have triggers. So that will trigger, one episode will trigger the depressive episode. So it's important to that those when they come to their diagnosis, because essentially that is definitely needs to be diagnosed. It's not something you can self-diagnose. It's absolutely not something people should band about. It absolutely needs to go through the process of being properly diagnosed. There will be triggers, and for those people who have that diagnosis, who are aware of their triggers, to let people know, their closest people know what those are, so that they can either avoid them, or if they happen, they know that potentially this is triggering an episode. But that is definitely something that has to be diagnosed.
It's the same with OCD. People kind of ban that OCD thing about far too much. I mean, OCD, proper OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is very, very serious. There are people that literally can't get out of bed because of things that don't match up in their bedroom and stuff. It's very, very serious. Just because you like your supplements lined up in your cupboard in a certain way doesn't mean you've got OCD. Just because you like to go to the gym at a certain time doesn't mean you've got OCD. So be careful not to ban that about to kind of it's actually very, very serious.
I think that the thing that's come across tonight is make sure you differentiate between your mental health
everyday occurrences.
Yeah. And I think you made that point very well, Callum, tonight, and that's something that I'm going to take away from it. Joe, have you got a viewpoint on bipolar? Because it was mentioned earlier on. I mean, and I can throw other things in, like, feeling elated and depressed at the same time. It seems quite difficult to be able to feel that way, but that's the sort of thing that bipolar is.
I think it's like Leanne said, it has to be diagnosed through the absolute professional route. It's not something that somebody should definitely self-diagnose, or somebody else should say, I think that person's got bipolar. They might have some behavior patterns that might lend them to think that, but the actual diagnosis is really important. But I also think, people can live really well with a diagnosis of bipolar as well. I think we often think that with mental illness that people, it's all right, that people are written off, and I really need to stress that
we can adapt.
case.
Yeah,
absolutely. with the right support, with the right treatment for some mental illnesses, people can live a fulfilled life, and actually at that point that might be better than the life they had before they had a diagnosis. Because they were probably probably very distraught, very distressed, very confused about what was going on. They were probably absolutely petrified of what was happening in their life, and some probably their carers and their families as well. So I think that's really important message to get across to people, that people can go to work, they can hold down a job, they can have children, they can they can go on holiday. I think I think the media don't help by that negative and it's about challenging the stigma of mental health, which I think as people that are in that area, we need to be doing a lot more of.
Yeah, I think the thing from tonight's video cast and podcast is that there is help out there. If people want the help, you just got to source the right avenue for you to go down, be it a Samaritans or be it Mind or be it people like yourselves. We don't want people to lose hope. People out there, if you need some help, for goodness sake, ask for help. And I'd like to say that's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness, but and hopefully I've used the right words there, folks. So, Joe, can you give just a couple of minutes if people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Ronnie, sorry, can I, just before we kind of do the farewells and things, I just wanted to touch on something quickly that you just said there, and I think you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but we all have a place in society. We potentially, our roles, our jobs, are depending on who we influence in life. We now is a time that we can step up or do things to help others. I want to get that message across, that it's not just you guys that can help. Yeah. It's everybody. We can help our friends, we can help our families, we can help people that we work with. I've obviously got clients myself, and what I've done is I set up a group to get people in a group to be part of something, is what I've done. And then I come up with, obviously my clients are all they're into fitness, so I'm trying to get them to, I would normally PT them or coach them, so I had to come up, adapt with training at home, so to give them stuff that they can do at home, so that they weren't like, oh my God, I'm not going to be training for a month anymore. So don't worry, I've got a fix for that. There you go, there's some workouts for the next 30 days. But what I also thought about was, as part of the group, to be part of something, I set up some mindfulness kind of tasks on a broken up throughout the 30 days, and things like I said, okay, so task one was list all the things that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And I asked everybody,
really easy thing to start your day off positive.
Yeah, Leanne practices that a lot. The daily gratitude thing is very, very self-rewarding. The daily gratitude, it's amazing how it can alter your mindset for the day.
Yeah,
that's really good. That's a really good group.
Well, it just things, because like I said, I've been through things myself, so I understand what can drive you down and what can bring you up, and so I applied a few of these things, even things like a lot of people, when they eat food, they just shovel it in the mouth and swallow it and then forget that they've eaten it. So I wanted them to, as part of a coach and a nutritional advisor, and help them. I kind of thought, well, when was the last time you actually thought about the taste and the temperature and the texture and things like that? So now's the time, when you're sitting down and eating a meal, actually pick it up and put it on a fork or in your hand or whatever, and chew it, taste it. What does it feel like in your mouth? What are the sensations that are going through your head? Analyze, because we don't do that. We literally just swallow, gulp, and it's gone. So it's things like that, trying to appreciate different things. And one other thing that I've done, which was I did do a little bit of a Google around what my I can't remember. It was around colours. It was about colours and how certain colours can help with people's minds. And I couldn't relate to that me personally, but I put it in as a task and I said, start thinking about colours, and even drawing on a piece of paper with, whatever you fancy, whatever comes to mind. And some of the members in the group already had colouring books with felt tips and they coloured. And for me, I was like, this is the thing. I didn't even know it was a thing. It's just, So I mean, what I'm trying to get out, because the people that will watch this and are watching it are either people that go to the gym, are missing the gym right now, or influencers of those people, the coaches, the PTs, and I want them to take away a message from this and try to be able to help anybody that they know. So it's, before you wrap up, and tell us about yourselves, your business and things. If you've got any parting kind of tips to anybody that's watching, then please come out and tell us those as well, because I think I really want to make this valuable. And we've analysed it quite a lot, and it's made me understand certainly the difference between health and illness. I think that was a big one for me: mental health, mental illness. But what can we take away from this? What can we use and then pass on to other people? So, Ronnie's going to ask you to kind of tell us about you and your business, but also throw in what can we take away from this tip, if you can, please.
Okay, so thanks, Matt. Joe, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and what sort of what things you can offer.
Okay, thanks for that, Ronnie. Yeah, so you can get in touch with me at www.workingwithyouinmind.co.uk, and you can book in a 30-minute complimentary consultation, because I do see one-to-ones as well as working directly straight into the workplace. I think in terms of how people can support other people, I think that's probably what you were asking. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely.
I think if you don't feel confident around the kind of questions that you need to ask, just be okay with that and just be there for that person. It doesn't have to be anything dynamic. It can be so simple, but actually really, really effective. So I think not to shy away from how you might feel yourself when you're struggling around, oh, well, what if I say the wrong thing? Or what happens if I don't know how to respond to how they might react to that. I think it's just keeping things really simple is really important, and not overcomplicating it for yourself, but also for the other person.
Brilliant. Okay. Well. Thanks, Joe. Callum and Leanne, can you tell us how people can get in touch with both yourselves, please?
Well, we've got an email, which is mentalhealthmentor@outlook.com, or you can look us up on Facebook, just send us a direct message, or Instagram, and it's mentalhealthmentor.org, and just look for the logo.
Or there's also Evolution Gym, the gym we own, Northumberland. You can also get in contact with that as well if it's more fitness related. If you want to, after lockdown is finished, with call in to see us, we can do that as well.
Yeah. So we offer like mental health awareness training, fitness professionals and coaches. As I said, it's a not-for-profit organisation. So we use, if any profits that we do make, can reinvest, like subsidise someone who's struggling their membership of a gym, etc. And yeah, so we teach that, and also how to speak to someone who is struggling. So what the trigger words, what to use, what not to use. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, just a big shout out to our show sponsors tonight as well, at toughwraps.com. There's a 10% discount, so if you just look at the link and you can see what it is on the bottom of the screen there. So big shout out to them. Matt, anything that you want to say?
Well, what I was just going to suggest, Ronnie, is that we just allow Leanne and Callum and Joe just to go backstage. We'll speak to them in a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And then me and you will just finish this off just with what we kind of would like to bring to the discussion, to the table for the next one. So if we just say goodbye, don't go anywhere just yet. We'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
I'll just take you out of the screen.
Very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Okay, Ronnie, that was good. So let me just.
Our next edition, Matt. What's our thought process on it?
So we had a conversation, and we I think it was yesterday, maybe I can't remember. Time's going, but obviously, what we're trying to bring is current topics to the table, and I heard things today on the news that potentially the 2nd of December is not a fixed date, and it's potentially going to move. So obviously that makes the whole situation around mental illness and health even worse if it does move. But in 2 weeks' time, I'd like to bring forward some gym owners or people in that kind of space to talk about what the whole situation from start to finish. From March, from the first lockdown to now, and in the future. What's happened to their business? What is happening to their business? What's the future look like to them? How is it impacting them and that kind of thing? And I think so. What we're looking for really is we're reaching out to any gym owners that want to take part and tell us their story and tell us what's happening in their world.
Yeah, I think we obviously we both know lots of gym owners, and for me, they've probably gone under the radar with all of this because they're just expected to close the gym and get on with it. But they've all got costs, they've all got staff to look after, they've got equipment to pay for, they've got rent, they've got rates, they've got families to support and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a shout out there at anybody who wants to come on and have a chat to us regarding it in a couple of weeks' time. Just contact Matt at the link that Matt's got underneath his picture there, and let's see whether we can get 3 or 4 of you guys or girls on here and to talk about it, and let's bring it to the people who want to look at it and listen to it. So it's a difficult time, really is.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll wrap it up there, Ronnie, and thank you. I want to say thank you for your first co-host with me. It's been good, and I look forward to many more with you.
Well done, 2 Scousers having a go.
All right, I'm just going to finish.
Folks. Thank you.
Okay.